web applications, full stack. So we have been learning how to build services with Node.js and Express, and then the front end with React. Let's glue them together so that we get a full stack app. So basically, in a full stack we have a client and we have a server, and there can be, of course, database on the server side or any other necessary tools. The client could be anything that runs on browser, and on the server we could have PHP frameworks or Ruby on Rails or some kind of a Python framework or Java, etc. But in this course we have been building the application with React on the client side in the browser, and Node.js and Express in the server side, and we have been using MongoDB. So let's go with these solutions. React and Node.js, and the aim is to build basically two apps so that we have the backend with Node.js and Express, and we have MongoDB, etc. And we have plenty of Node.js packages and all other tools. And then we are building the front end with React, and we will have packages on the React side, of course, too. And the key here is that we have a fluent communication with these two, so the backends can discuss with the front end. So the backend has API endpoints providing, for example, JSON data. We have been doing this already, but we will continue it in here. And the front end calls these endpoints and then formats the data it gets and shows it in the browser. So let's have an example on full stack application. Okay, so now I have a completely empty folder here, and let's start by creating our React part in this full stack application. So npx create React app, and we call it client. So this will take a while. So now we have a client folder here like this, and the React created also the Git repository here. Let's remove it so that in our Git repository would include also the server part. Now it would have only included the client, but let's have all it. So let's build a new repository like this, and then we can use the npx express generator. And we do not want to build any view, so we are not using book, Jade, any other view template engine, but we will only create a backend server. And let's call it the server. And now we have a server. So now we have two folders here, client and server. Then let's do npm init so that we could get our application. Yeah, this is a full stack. We have everything correct here. Yes. And now we have a package JSON here. And we would like to have some commands here, some scripts. Let's first check that we can remove this. And we have this, this is our Express package JSON, and this is our React client. But here we would like to have a way to start the whole application, so let's add a few scripts here. First, let's build a script that will start the client. So we will start, but this is the React part is not in this directory, so we can of course we can go cd to client, etc. But we can also use this prefix client. So now it will go to the folder client and then start. And let's have a similar to server. like this, and then we would like to have a script that will start both of these client and server. In this we need a new package concurrently, and now we can call it dev, for example, and we will run the both commands, client and the server, at the same time. Like this. These commands that the concurrently will run will need to be in double quotes, and as this is also in those characters, then we need to have this escape character, and we will now run these two commands like that. So let's see, and now we have the dependency here. Let's put this here and override it like this. And now if we call npm run, now we can start it with npm run dev, and we have some kind of a mistake here. Let's change this start. Let's go to the server. In server we need to install this first, of course. And now we are getting the packages. And let's see the file right now. Here we have start. Do we have a node-mon here? Yes, we do. So let's then modify this to have node-mon. And now let's go to the client. npm install. Is there something to install? Yes. And then we will have this npm run dev. Now we are in a situation that something is already run on port 3000. So basically that's why the React part cannot start. And the reason is that our server is also running on port 3000. So let's put the server to 5000, and now we can check that it's not on the same port as that's our React is. So let's go it again. So now our client is running, and then now the server is running, and now the client is also running. So now we can go to the localhost 3000. So React is there, and localhost 5000 we have the basic express. Then let's continue. So now we have the server and client running. So we can drop these completely. We don't need, yeah. So let's then just to do something that we would like to have something from the server to the client, so we can see that everything is working. Let's build this client a bit. So we have here the app.js, so we could just get some data from the server, and let's build a component folder. Now what I'm now doing, And let's have a new file called data.js. And then let's have another component called data item.js. So now we have a data items. Let's first use this data item so that we would have a table that is full of data. That data we are getting from the server side, but let's first have some kind of a table here. We need a table, then we would have a t-head, and here we would have a new row and new cell called ID, and then another cell called name. And after that we would have a t-body, and inside this t-body we would use this data item to get all the data there. And of course we would first need to have the data, so let's have some kind of variable. So this data is some kind of an array, and now we would like to have a use state here, of course, from React, and then we will use effect, and we will need that use effect, of course, also. So let's import it. We are not cleaning up anything, and this will only call when the page is loaded, so no other calling this use effect. So let's fetch some data, and now we would like to fetch it from the server, and we would of course need to call it like localhost 5000, but it's too long, so let's call it like API data, but this is not working until we build some kind of a proxy, and this proxy is going to be here in the client. So we go check the client JSON, and we will add a new setting here called proxy, and define that it's going to be http://localhost 5000. So this is the Node Express server address, and that's going to be our proxy, and this means that we do not need to write this all the time. We can just go and write like a /API, etc. So it's good. So we want to get some kind of a data from the API, and then of course we get some kind of a response, and with this response we are going to get JSON data, and then this JSON data is going to be set to this data variable like this. No, like this. And then we can use the data here. So let's go through the data. One data item. And then we will use this new component. We get the key from this DID. This is not right. And then element, no, data is going to be this data like this. So data item is not defined. That's pretty sure. We don't have import. And then we will need to build the data item itself. So what we are getting here is this data. And then we will just build a table row. So no div here, but table row. We will have two elements, so the ID and name. And the first one, of course, is the ID here. So data ID is just simple. And the second one is the data name. And this is not right. Now it's right. So yeah, working. But of course, we don't have the real data here. We will just need to build the backend too. Let's add some header here. This is just a page. Okay, fine. And we'll have this app.js. We can just have the something like this, so it's a bit prettier. And now we would like to have the backend working here, so let's go with the backend server. And what we have here, we have two routes. We have index and users. Let's add a new route. Let's add API. And then we can just go and add a new file, API.js, and we can just copy paste this stuff from here to here, and it was the API data. So I'll just copy paste some data here. So now we have some data, and then we have this data here, and we are just providing this JSON. This data. This is very simple. And we are not getting anything. So the issue was here that I did not have reloaded the React. So this setting was never read in the production. So now it's working. So we can get this JSON and then set data. So now we are getting the data here. So let's put it like that we get only one data item, so foo, bar, bus, or whatever. So let's have a link here. So first we would like to have a import. So we would like to get the link from React router, which we have not installed yet. So let's go to another npm install. And then we can modify this and to have a link. We can have several terminals open. Link to, and where we are heading, data slash data ID. And this is the link, and of course this ending DAG closing tag would be here. Let's see. Yes, we need to have this app in router, and this ending tag here. And let's copy paste this. So we are definitely wanting to get some stuff from here. So browser router as router routes and route. And now we got it. So now we have links here which will modify the URL, but nothing happens yet. So let's build a route here. So this is the table, and after that we can have a routes like this, and then there is a one route that's path equals data slash some kind of variable ID, and element what we are giving is data like this. Data is not defined, of course it's not defined. So like this. And now we are heading to this item here. So now we once again would like to have some kind of a data from the server, but let's first import few things. So first we would like to have use params. So we get access. We need to have access to this parameter here. So let's use params from React router DOM, and then we will need use effect and use state. From React like this, and we will need const ID that we are getting from use params, and this ID is provided here. So then we can have it here, and the next thing we need is this data. Now we are only fetching string, and what we are printing out is the ID, and then the ID came from the parameter, and then the data and its name we are wanting to have. So there is a ID and name in this data, so we want to get only the name here, besides the ID is coming from the URL, and we can fetch it through use effect. And once again we do not have anything to return, so let's fetch API data, and then we will have this ID. Let's add the ID there, and after that we can just get the response. Response JSON. Good, and then JSON set data, and this JSON is going to be there. And what we want, we would update this every time, but we want to update this when the ID is updated. So let's see. Now we got the ID here, so it's updating, but we do not get any data because we don't have this kind of an endpoint in the API. So let's do that next. So pretty similar to this route, we would like to have a second route to get data with parameter ID. And what we would like to return is just this data, find data ID equals request params ID. So we are getting the data and we want to get that data element, that's ID, is this request params ID. Let's see if this is working. It seems to be working. So now we have fully functioning front end and back end. We are fetching data from the back end, and back end is only providing us some JSON data, and this front end is getting it, and it's updating this only when the ID is changing. So if we would like have it like this, now we would not update the data at all. This ID is changing because the URL is changing, so the ID is then changing, but the data is not. And if we would like this, now we would have calls all the time, which is not nice. So let's just have the ID here, and now there is calls will be done when the ID is changing. Okay, this is working. Then the next thing is that I wanna present is the authentication. So we were talking about the authentication, that we can do it differently with React and JSON Web Token. So the next thing is that I will copy paste old code to this project. So we will have the authentication part in the backend, and then we will do some front-end coding. I will add also several modules to the server. So now we have the code added. So we have this validate token, which we were using to validate our token, and then we have the user model. Now we're getting data from MongoDB, and we have had this user route. So we have all the register and login parts here, and I have added this new route list X, so it will only log the user data, and thus we get to see that it's fully functioning. So now if we go to the URL user list, it will log that we have 3 users in database, so now we can use them. Okay, it seems to be working. Let's see. We can get rid of these, I think, and let's go here, and we will have a new component called login.js. Which we will use then to log in. We are not building the register part, etc., but we are building the login, so we can see that the JSON Web Token thingy is working. And in this login we will need use state as usual, and also use effect. And then let's have the variable user data and set user data, use state, and this is going to be an object. Then we will need to have a form here, of course, how we otherwise get login. So let's build a form. And inside this form we will have 3 input elements. First we have a type text, name equals username, and then the second one is password, and the name is password. And the third one is of course the input type submit. And this is our form, so let's head here, and we could actually have the form here to be shown, of course. Let's add it here. This is too horrible. Login form here. So let's add it. Now it's here. So this is the simple login form. Let's add some functionality there. So this user data is going to have this data set here. So let's have a function to put that data from the input fields. So if something changes on the form, so let's handle change. This is quite simple function. It takes a parameter, it gets this event, and then we will have an arrow function here, and we just set user data. So we will have the user data. It's a object. We will have everything that is inside it, and besides that we will add modified version of the target name, yeah, right, that, and target value. So if we are changing username, so then the password is kept the same, but the username is here, and the value it gets as a value is what user has been writing. So let's see. So we will have this component and login, and now it's very empty, and now we are crashing. So yes, I'm having a typo here. So now if I'm giving it a username and password, it's going to be in this this user data state. So it's working. So the next thing is that we would like to submit this data to the server. So let's build a submit. Let's have that here, and then we will have the on submit, and on that we will call, of course, submit function. Let's build the submit function. Once again we are taking an event and doing something with that event. And first, of course, we need to prevent the default so it does not get sent to the server. So we are preventing that, and then we are doing fetch. Fetch call, and now we are calling users/login. So our call point is this. So there is no get, so we need to make a post call. Of course, we are sending data with post call. So we need to keep some headers. First, we will decide that the method will be post. Then headers. We are sending content type it's hard to write, I think, application/JSON. So JSON is what we are sending, and then we will have the body part, what we are sending. So it's JSON stringify and this user data. And lastly, we will set mode course. So there was this documentation describing how we are doing business with different domains. Here we have localhost 3000 and 5000. So there might be errors with course, so please make sure that you are familiar with the concept. And after this is OK send, then we can check what is the response. So response, we should get some kind of a response as a JSON. And then we can do something with this data we get back. Let's start by doing console log data and see what we are getting back, if we are getting back anything at all. So let's see, even the compile failed. Okay, yeah, so this is failing because this is of course string. So let's see if we just submit this. Nothing is happening. Oh, it's users login. Yeah, now we are talking. So now we did get login failed, so it's here. So we didn't find any user like that, of course, but there is a user called foobar. And once again, login failed. Let's try with the correct password. And success was true, but we did not get the token as we do not have this secret yet. So we need to have that. Let's put this .env file. Let's copy paste this secret there, and then we will probably need to do some restarting like this. And now we got the token. Good. So what we should do with the token, so we would want to save this somewhere. We had this local storage and session storage, but their security is not that high, although they work. We could use here we could save it as a React variable, or we could use HTTP only cookie, which would be nice. But let's go with a simple solution. Here we will save the token here in the app as a state. So let's do some additional variables. JSON web token. This is just a string, and then we will have a user2. And the user is object. And now we are using this login. Let's give those as a props. So jwt equals set jwt and set user and then jwt equals jwt if we need that too. And then we have those we can take them here as a props. So set jwt and set user. And now instead of just logging the data, we can check that if there is data token available, then we can set JWT data token, and we can also set user. And here we are going to let's see, here is the token, so let's copy paste this token here, and let's see it here. So this token has these three parts. Here is what we are using, what algorithm to hash, and here is the payload, and then there is this signature. So here we will have all the necessary, the username and ID, etc., etc. And let's check how we could get that. So it's based 64 encoded. So we will need to take that data, split it with a dot, which was the delimiter, and we will take the second one, so it's in the first place. And now this we are going to decode buffer from, and we define that it's base 64 coded like this, and then we can JSON parse this, and to string finally we get the actual value. And now I think I'm missing something here. Yes, this should not be here, it should be here. Right, like that. Let's see if this is working. No errors, but yes errors. No, we should use the token, not the data, of course. Okay, now it might be okay. So then we can check the actual app here and do something there. So now we have this user variable. So if we are logged in, so we would not need this login form anymore, and we would want to keep a notification that the user is already logged in. So let's give it a welcome here. So if there is JSON-W token, we can write welcome username. Otherwise we do nothing. And let's see. So foobar has now logged in, so it is working. We have the data there. Similarly, we would like to remove this or make it not visible, this login, so we are not rendering it. So we can do it like this, conditional rendering. So let's see. If we have a user, then let's go further. If we have a ID, then let's go further. If that ID is length is more than 0, so then there is a real ID, which is a MongoDB ID, so it has something like 12 characters or something. Then we will show this, which is not true because we want to show it if there is no login. So yes, it's working. We just wanted to reload everything. So now we don't have the user variable, or we have the user variable, but it does not have the ID. It does have the length. So this is just JavaScript syntax that if there is a user, then we check that if there is a ID variable inside it, and if there is a ID, then we just check if there is a length, and if these are true, then we can compare the length. And then after that we can just print this. So now if I'm just logging, like this, now the login form is not visible anymore, it's not rendered. and we see that our username is pressed here, and we can use this API. Now the all necessary data is living here, so we have the whole token and we have the user here. So there are several states. So here is the data, here is the token, and then there is this user which has this ID, username, and expiration days and date, and etc. So we have all the necessary things. So now if we would want to call, let's say, this user listing, which would validate the token, so we could send the token, it would be here, just sending the token, and it would work. Now the not funny part is that if I'm refreshing this page, we are losing all the user information, so it's not good, but it's working. It's working here good enough, I would say. So there are 3 options. We could use these user data saved in a variable in a React, or we could use the web storage, which is not that safe, or the HTTP only cookie, which is probably the best way to do it. But this is pretty much how we can build full stack application. We have the server side, the backend, and then we have the client side, the front end, and the all things are now in the same folder, and we can use a command to run both of those, or we can just start some of those if we want to have, for example, if we want to run them on the different terminals, then you can easily start client, or you can start server, or you can start both. And we were doing this proxy, so we do not want to, we are not necessary to, it's not necessary to make a call that would have the whole localhost thing in the URL. We are just calling this proxy, which works fine here in our development environment. And then we use the login to get the token, and with that token we can do then a lot of things through backend, which of course we did this with this open API endpoint, so we are getting data that endpoint in here in the use effect. So this is how you build full stack application. So as a conclusion, gluing frontend and backend together is not that hard, and of course you need to have a backend that has clear API endpoints, so it's not doing any rendering on the backend side, it's only providing data to the front end. And JSON is very handy when transferring data.